whether, you're starting out with our photon light or the full sauna, it's just something that you can use all the time. And in fact, I was going to talk about the photon for a second, because I know that's what you got. And you haven't tried the sauna yet. The photon, because of these cascading effects and this wide array of effects that it has in all cell types and all tissue types, and also the beneficial neuropsychiatric effects of near-infrared light therapy, it kind of makes sense to use a photon more than just for spot therapy. Traditionally, people use a photon. It's called single lamp therapy. It goes back over 50 years. They were using these bulbs to heal wounds in racehorses for like 4 or 5 decades now. So that's the traditional use, is put it on your injured shoulder to accelerate wound and muscle healing, or you've got inflammation, you've got a diabetic edema, put it on the feet, put it on the legs, hit that, do a little spot therapy. That's the classic use. Now there's more uses of the photon, and they're much more, well, I don't want to say much more interesting, because spot therapy is interesting, but they're new and novel, but they're so effective. So for example, I don't have this just here next to me as a conversation piece where I'm just, or something like that. It actually lives next to me. So when I work all day long, I have this photon light, not directly at me as a spot therapy, but just kind of pointed up. And what that's doing is it's doing 2 things. One, the red light, near-infrared light, is actually canceling out the blue light emission that reaches my face. And I can show you this with the spectrometer. I think we have it on our Instagram. So when I hold a spectrometer to my screen, this is an LED screen I'm looking through. So there's a big blue peak. And no matter how many filters and flux and stuff you put on, there's still blue coming out. When I shine the photon light here, the red light cancels out the blue light, and you can measure with the spectrometer, the blue light flattens out. And so that's preventing this high energy light from damaging us. Blue light is called high energy visible light. It causes free radical formation, even though it's not an ionizing radiation. So it's a subtle thing that damages over time. And that's a whole nother conversation, like the problematic effects of artificially high levels of blue light exposure we get nowadays from LEDs. But one thing it does is it's canceling that effect out. And the other thing it's doing is that LED and fluorescent light, and also incandescent light in low wattage incandescence, flicker. They flicker because of alternating current pulses, and it changes phases twice a second. So US electricity is 60 hertz. So an LED flickers twice a second. Twice a second, the LED is turning on and off, on and off. And that's literally strobe light effect on us. You wouldn't put yourself in front of a strobe light if you had epilepsy or epileptic issues. But that's actually what we're doing with LEDs. So flickering light, pulsing light from artificial light sources has a pretty strong correlation in the literature with a lot of problems: migraine, stress, depression, anxiety, and other things. And you kind of feel that if you go to a hospital, you got all the white, the fluorescent lights above you. It's like, it doesn't feel good. And so what I'm saying about the photon is it's non-flickering photon. So when these photons come in here and there's this flickering light photons that are coming down towards me, the photon creates this happy bubble of clean space. And you can measure with the flicker meter, it's canceled out. There's no measurable flicker. And so all that to say that the photon is an environmental light therapy device as well. It's making the indoor lighting environment more naturalistic and less artificial. And that results in you just kind of feeling better while you work throughout the day. And then also at night after dark, you don't want blue light, right? It messes with your sleep cycle. It keeps you up. It messes with the quality of your sleep and so forth. But who doesn't look at a digital screen now after dark? It's damn near impossible. Or if I don't want to, if I'm saying, okay, no TV, no screens, I still want to hang out with my family after dark, especially in the winter, in those 5 to 8 hour periods. And so you can use the photon light to have flicker-free, blue light-free lighting after dark. And the light spectrum that you feel and see is literally the fireplace. It's literally the bonfire. And that's the feeling you get. And these are just really practical tools to have to subtly improve your relationship with light in your daily life. And because what I said before, the fact that we're beings of light, this light all affects us for better and worse. I mean, you can do all these amazing things with red light therapy, and you can also crush people with blue light and destroy them and cause all kinds of health problems.
Yeah,
So
I'm thinking a lot about when I used to work in an office, and when I lived in the Northeast, and I would go to this office every day, especially in the middle of winter where there's, like 6 hours of daylight, right? It's dark most of the time. So
yeah,
you get into work when it's dark, you spend your day under these just fluorescent LED lights, just getting that flicker, that blue light. And then you go outside and it's dark again. And it's like, this is a recipe for seasonal depression. And people completely overlook this. At least most people do. Some people are coming around to this light thing, but it really does make a difference. Ever since I don't work in an office anymore, I live in the Caribbean. I get as much natural light as I can throughout the day, and the difference that it makes on my mood. I mean, no pun intended. It's night and day, right? Like you can feel it. So obviously, not everybody can leave their job and move down to the Caribbean, be close to the equator, and get daylight when you can get it. Yeah. This seems like that hack to really get those benefits without disrupting your daily life.
Exactly. It's a hack, but it's a hack in the positive sense. We're not stealing something. We're essentially, and that's what we're doing with biohacking, is we're trying to trick the body into thinking it's in its natural context. And so we can do so by introducing flicker-free full spectrum incandescent light from an incandescent source, like what we do here with the photon that's really hot, that mimics sunlight. But unlike sunlight, there's no ultraviolet or blue emission here. And I'm not throwing out ultraviolet light and blue light into the trash. It is also dose dependent. You do also need that. But ancestrally, we got that from sunlight simultaneously with red near infrared. So the red near infrared is providing the antidote to the free radical damaging effects of the blue light, while the body is taking the ultraviolet light to produce vitamin D. And also you need the ultraviolet light stimulus and blue, or particularly blue light stimulus, I think, to promote melatonin production in the pineal gland. And then when the sun sets at the end of the day, you have a nice stored dose of melatonin. Sun sets, blue light stimulus ends, and the melatonin is released to the brain clock, which gets you ready for sleep. That's the ideal scenario. But all day long, when you're under the sun, you're getting ultraviolet and blue and red near infrared. And so ideally you get the morning sun and then the late evening sun, the sunrise and the sunset stuff. And if you're darker skinned, you can handle more, but you need more light. If you're lighter skinned, we don't need as much light because light penetrates deeper. But the problem with blue and ultraviolet is the dose is small. What we need is not too big, and we can really quickly get into problems if we get too much ultraviolet. Ultraviolet light is ionizing radiation. It has mutagenic effects on our DNA. So the ultraviolet light from the sun hits us, and it has it creates free radicals. It has mutagenic effects in the DNA, but the cell is then immediately using the near infrared red light that's coming at the same time to stimulate mitochondrial functions, and the mitochondrial cascade occurs, and it immediately is counteracting and neutralizing those free radicals and repairing and restoring everything. So it balances it out. But indoors, it's all blue light all the time, and there's no more red and near infrared. In this pursuit of energy efficiency, we thought, well, we'll throw away the infrared portion of our lighting because we don't need that. But in fact, it's been very deleterious to our health because that portion we don't see is actually beneficial to our health. It provides light therapy. Even the fireplace, which is cool. It's not really hot. It's not at a high Kelvin like the filament in our photon. It still provides a photobiomodulation effect. And that's why humans have a natural desire for bonfires. It's not just the sun. After dark, we have a biologically programmed desire to have this bonfire spectrum low in our perspective. Just like the ancestral humans, the ideal landscape is like the prairie with the river. And we have like a natural inclination towards that. Also to light after dark, we're naturally inclined to bonfire light. And that's literally what this is. It's an electric, or what we're doing is kind of like, hey, let's I can't move to the Caribbean. Let's bring nature back into our homes. Let's make sure that our technology meets nature kind of midway, so we can live our lives, we can work at home, but understanding that we're beings of light, let's trick our bodies into thinking they're outdoors while we're working indoors.